Hi, I'm Jonathan Block. In this video, I'll be making some grainy ambient bass sounds using a couple of apps on the iPad, Other Desert Cities, and Velvet Machine. The signal chain is the Rob Allen Mouse 4-string fretless bass. Its mono output goes directly into a Universal Audio Volt 276 interface that communicates back and forth with the iPad Pro. I have an instance of AUM set up here. I'll throw that up larger. Let me start with kind of the basic effects that I'm using, some compression and EQ. Again, this jam will be built around a Grainy delay app, which is Other Desert Cities, and then Velvet Machine, which is kind of a big, huge, expansive reverb. But first, I've got Bleass for the compressor. This is just kind of a standard compression sound. Really just to level it out and keep the peaks from going too high. At the end of the chain, I have ChannelEQ, and this I'm using this because this bass has a preamp in it. It's very, very bassy. Cut the bass a little. Still, still real deep, but the effects will kind of get rid of some of that as well. And then I just raise the high end a little in the mid 2K range, just by like 20 decibels, just to get some cut through, and also to get those grainy kind of tinkly sounds, you do need a little more high end. So that's just for the basic straight bass sound. Let's get into the effects again. First, we have one instance. I'm using two instances of Other Desert Cities from Audio Damage. Again, this is like a grainy delay. This app's been around for a long time. I think this may actually be one of the first kind of grainy apps available for the iPad. I typically don't do that type of sounds, but this patch I like a lot. It's a preset. It's called River Delta, and this is what it sounds like. So very long tails on this. Also, I should note, I've mentioned this before, a lot of times when I'm working with the bass and apps, even hardware effects, I love a mix knob with bass so that clear bass sound can still come through. You can have some note definition keep going. Sometimes I don't want really that note definition. So for this particular jam, Other Desert Cities, both instances are set to 50% wet dried. So you can still hear the bass in there, but the effects are really driving the sound. And then when I get Velvet Machine in there, I am adjusting the mix knob over the jam, so eventually it's at 100% and it takes over everything. So let's move on to the second instance of Other Desert Cities. This is a patch I created based on the scatter algorithm and patches that they have here. I changed the pitch. It's not an octave. I changed it to a fifth, and this is what this sounds like. A little more of a traditional sound there, really kind of like two effects in kind of pan hard left and hard right. Let's hear both of them together. So this is the River Delta patch going into the scatter patch. And that will keep going for a while. I'm just going to cut it out because let's move on to Velvet Machine. All right. Let me turn Velvet Machine on. I'm using, I have created a number of patches in here, but there's like 3 or 4 patches that are very similar. They get very, very dense. It's just the degrees of denseness that they have. One of the ones that's kind of in the middle of that range is called Swarm, and it adds a bit of high-end, I'll just say more graininess. It almost sounds like distortion or overdrive, but when you're looking at the meters, it's very low, and the clear bass sound is going through. So it's just this kind of like overdriven, grainy sound that happens. I'm going to hit a chord just so you can hear how this kind of builds up. So you hear that grainy I'm talking about? And if I keep adding things, it'll just keep growing. And that's at 28%, I think, almost 30%. So when you put it all the way up, it takes over everything. It's almost like a metallic-y rain sound there, too. All right. Let's hear them all together. Turn that off. Put those two on, but put this down to 30%. Because what I'm going to do is this Velvet Machine, Velvet Machine will be on constantly. It's just the mix knob will be down. Halfway through the jam, or maybe even later, I'll move it up to 30%. Then I'll do some stuff, and eventually I'll just bump it up to 100% so that we end kind of with this synthy, grainy swelliness. But first, here's everything. So this is Velvet Machine at 30%, and both instances of Other Desert Cities, River Delta, and the JB 5th scatter patch. You really do not have to hit a lot of notes for this. Let me just hit one note and let's see what it does. All right. Let me let all that fade out, reset a few things, and I'm just going to get right into the jam. So you could hear at times it really that bass kind of overloaded. It never really hit distortion, but with that graininess, it kind of sounded sounded a little kind of more overdriven than usually I'm doing with the ambient sounds, and even with the grains and with the harmonics that really came through. But it's always interesting to experiment with two of the same apps and different patches and the way that they interact, and then putting Velvet Machine on top of those two instances of other desert cities, even with something like the bass, where, yeah, I did a few kind of riffs here and there, but it was really just kind of slow individual lines, kind of half melodies, notes here and there, and the apps just took over and made everything big and expansive, and it's fun and it sounds great. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and good luck with your own music.